The federal government remains proud of the security agencies for acting professionally and showing utmost restraint all through the NSAS protests and the ensuing violence, an action that saved lives and properties. 5. The 6 soldiers and 37 policemen who died during the NSAS protests are human beings with families, even though the human rights organizations and CNN simply ignore their deaths, choosing instead to trumpet a phantom massacre. I will now quickly go to other issues related to NSAS. The National Economic Council, which comprises all state governors and representatives of the federal government and chaired by the Vice President, has already addressed other issues relating to the NSAS protest. At its meeting of 15th October 2021, the NEC received an update on the reports of the judicial panels of inquiry into allegations of human rights violations against members of Nigerian Police Force and other security agencies. Note that 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory, under the auspices of the National Human Rights Commission, had set up judicial panels, commissions of inquiry, to investigate allegations of violations of human rights levied against members of the Nigerian Police Force and other security agencies, especially members of the disbanded SARS. Out of the 28 states, 11 states, Abia, Ekiti, Enugu, Gombe, Kwara, Nasarawa, Ogun, Ondo, Osun, Plateau, and Rivers have submitted their final reports to Council. Governors of other states have also indicated that their reports will be submitted soon. Following deliberation on the recommendations of the panels, NEC agreed and resolved as follows. 1. Payment of compensation to victims. Each state, in collaboration with the federal government, shall establish modalities for the settlement of all monetary compensations awarded by the panels. Already as resolved by NEC, a number of states have set up victims' compensation funds, from which several victims have already received payment of sums awarded to them by the panels. 2. Prosecution of indicted process. Council directed state governors to immediately forward copies of final reports of the panels to the attorneys general for prompt arraignment and prosecution of all indicted process. While incidents in the reports relate to matters of discipline, in addition to prosecution, NEC urged the Nigerian Police Force to take disciplinary action on the affected police officers in line with the provisions of the Police Act 2020. 3. Improved efficiency of Nigerian Police Force and other security agencies and other security agencies architecture. NEC called on the leadership of the security agencies to ensure that A. Persons recruited into arms-bearing security agencies undergo psychiatric evaluations and drug tests before enlistment and periodically after enlistment, to ensure that the personnel are psychologically fit to carry live weapons and to identify behavioral tendencies that may require psychological or psychosocial interventions. B. Personnel of the agencies dutifully observe rules of engagement in the discharge of their functions, duties around and within the civilian populace. C. While acknowledging the various initiatives introduced by the federal government, to strengthen police accountability through the Police Service Commission, to sustain improved funding and budgetary allocation to the Nigerian Police Force and other security agencies, and lifting of the ban on recruitment of police officers. NEC urged the federal government to give priority to the general welfare of police officers and personnel of other security agencies. In particular, NEC advocated the review of pension and gratuity of retired police officers and attainment of parity of remunerations by police officers with sister security agencies. D. Undertake a comprehensive assessment of all police stations across the country with a view to ensuring that they are fit for purpose. E. Nigerian Police Force and other security agencies should deploy cutting-edge technology in the fight against crimes. F. Nigerian Police Force to, in line with the mandatory training provisions of the Police Act 2020, prioritize training of police officers on procedures for the entrenchment of human rights provisions guaranteed by the Constitution and on the professional handling of weapons. G. All those detained by the police as a result of the NSAS protests are expeditiously processed with due regard to the principles of fair hearing. H. The system established within the Nigerian Police Force for receipt and handling of complaints or petitions is strengthened, and all police officers on duty should be in police-approved uniform with their full names and first numbers boldly written for ease of identification. The state should, as resolved by NEC, properly utilize and support the community policing program of the federal government with active collaborative efforts and participation of traditional rulers, elders, youth, vigilante groups, etc. Establish standing committees under state ministries of justice to address human rights violations on a continuous basis and take measures aimed at flushing out miscreants squatting in uncompleted buildings and other blackout spots that serve as hideouts for criminals. Of course, NEC also issued an advisory on public protest to mark the first anniversary of the NSAS protest, while appreciating the role of lawful, peaceful protest in the advancement of public discourse under democratic governance. NEC strongly advised those planning public protests across the country to mark the NSAS anniversary to consider other lawful alternative means of engagement, especially because of the current security situation across the country and the possibility of such protests being hijacked by armed hoodlums and other opportunistic criminals to cause media. Finally, NEC also pointed out the various actions already taken by federal and state governments to address the grievances that led to the 2020 protests, including the disbandment of SARS, broad police reforms, establishment of judicial panels of inquiries to investigate allegations of human rights violations by members of the Nigerian Police Force and other security agencies, recommendations of which panels are already at various stages of implementation, including the setup of victims' compensation funds, from which several victims have received payments of sums awarded to them by the panels, and prosecution of police personnel indicted by the panel. Gentlemen, I Thank you for your very kind attention.